Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Yay, Nikki!
Hello, everyone.
Give people a minute or so to join us. Happy Friday. How's everyone doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. All right. Super excited to see you all today again for our Friday summit. We have a couple of special guests today, and I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to introduce today's topic, and we can get started. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks. We are going to be talking about all things external communications, and we have two amazing guests, Tori Fugit from Casey Pet Project and Nikki Reck of Pima Animal Care Center. And they will be sharing some of their strategies and ideas, and then we'll have Q&A and be able to chat. Tori, do you want to start off?
Sure. I can start off. I'm Tori Fugate. I'm the Chief Communications Officer at Casey Pet Project here in Kansas City, Missouri. And I have been with the organization for over 8 years. I came in the third month, so I've been pretty much since the beginning of our organization. So we take in around 10,000 animals a year. Usually, we were at 11,000 last year, and we're the open admission shelter for Kansas City, Missouri. But we're a nonprofit that runs it, so it's a public-private partnership. For those that aren't familiar with our organization, and recently, as in 2 weeks ago, we were awarded the contract for animal control services as well. So we will be launching our animal services division, and starting in September, we're going to do a transition period with current animal control officers with the city, and then we will officially take on that contract in December. And so I am, we're really excited, but yeah, very nervous, very busy right now that we're, going to be taking this on and hiring as well right now, 26 new positions here at our shelter. So it's really exciting. And so external communications is what I do, and it's a very broad topic. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about our strategy and everything. But really, we utilize social media for everything here. So no matter what the topic is that we have to talk about, we're always very transparent with everything that we do here. We have a website that has been crucial to getting out the word about everything that we have going on at the shelter. 2020 has been just absolutely insane, as it has been for all of us. We moved into our new shelter in January that we worked on for 5 years to try to get to open. And then in March, we said, never mind, nobody come to our brand new shelter. We're going to shut it down. You can't come anymore. So we never stopped operations, but during the pandemic, it was just like, every single day was sharing something new that we had going on. So we would constantly put up information on our website, and I'm actually going to show you, I won't share my screen, I'll just send you the link. We built a whole coronavirus page that we would share with everyone. And that was where we were directing traffic all the time to get the latest updates We were updating our adoption pages constantly because at one point, every single animal that we had available for adoption was living in a foster home. We had no available pets at our location. We had to shut down 2 of our adoption centers and all of our Petco cat habitat locations. We still have some that are closed. And so just always trying to get that information out. And then it seemed like about 2 weeks into the pandemic, all of the news stations were like, wait, what about pets? Like, they were like constantly trying to keep up with all the information. So we thankfully started getting a lot of really good media inquiries, and just trying to move every single pet that we had available into foster homes was quite a challenge. We adopted out 400 pets in 2 weeks and had 900 people sign up to foster for our organization. We have been really trying hard to keep in contact with everybody who fostered for us to try to see if we can get more interest. We're seeing a lot of new interest on the cat side, not as much on the dog side, but we recently relaunched our Dog Day Out program, and we're getting a lot of new people that are reaching out to us in that regard. So really still trying to keep up fostering is a huge emphasis, because right now we were only getting around 600 to 800 animals in a month, and throughout the pandemic, or for the first part of the pandemic, and now we took in 1,100 pets last month. So we're definitely in the height of summer here. So fostering is still a huge need for us. We post everything on our Facebook page, and so really just trying to keep it varied in content that we're always sharing. So I'll maybe post a pet that's available for adoption. With our events, we have moved all of our events to virtual, so really trying to get out the word about that. We have a huge virtual fundraiser tomorrow. That's our Catterday house party. So if anybody's wanting to see what we're doing, a live stream on our Facebook page, which is going to be really fun. And then also just sharing our struggles during the pandemic, showing what it's like for the staff to work here, showing what it's like for our volunteers, and continuing to highlight the animals that need help, not only to find homes, but also through donations. Always sharing the donate link, trying to get creative with the things that we're doing on Instagram, and using stories a lot more to get the word out about what's going on here. So that's really our biggest, I hardly ever do any sort of paid ads or anything. It's all usually organic, just trying to keep people entertained and engaged on our social media. And happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I didn't know how long you wanted me to talk, Kelly.
That was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious about your Catterday fundraiser, just quickly.
Yes.
What are you guys doing?
Last year, we had our very first Catterday in the Crossroads pub crawl, which the Crossroads is a big area. It's an art district here in town, but it's got a lot of bars. And so we did 9 bars for 9 lives. And everybody always thinks that the cats get left out. They're always like, oh, all your events have to do with dogs. And so we wanted to have something that was strictly for all the cat people. And we had 500 people for our first year event that descended upon this part of the Crossroads with like light up cat ears, and everybody wore cat stuff. And it was just awesome. This year, of course, we couldn't have it. We were still planning on doing it, but we've moved the entire thing online. Tito's Vodka and then Boulevard Brewing Company has this fling cocktail line that they're doing. They donated all of the beverages, and then Coca-Cola donated all the mixers. So we give everybody a kit that's got 5 cocktails per kit, and then we did it like a cute deck of cards, glasses, fruit, and all the stuff that they can make with the cocktails. And then Katie, that's on my team, is going to be doing this live stream tomorrow on our Facebook page from 11 to 4, and it's going to be a mixture of like videos that we've already recorded. We have like the zoo that's down the street with the big cats. We have little cats playing, and it'll be this fun live stream where we'll show how to make the cocktails and things like that. But anybody can donate during the event as well, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Very cool. We have some questions in the chat. One is, Spencer, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Spencer Conover in Pasco County, Florida. I was wondering, you could say, various social media outlets like, oh, we have 10,000 followers, we have 20,000 followers, but it's all relative to local population, right? So like what percentage of your local population do you think is effective for you guys as far as social media followers?
We definitely have, I know on Instagram, it's majority of our followers are here local. Facebook is a little bit more varied. We've had some really big stories over the past few years. We had the Derek Nottie with the Super Bowl player that sponsored all the dog adoption fees after the Super Bowl this year, which was a huge story for us. And so we've picked up a lot of followers from even around the world over the years. But I would say Instagram's where I post a lot more pets that are looking for homes on Instagram than I do on Facebook, because I know that we'll get messages and stuff like that all the time about pets that are on there. So Facebook is really more kind of a broad message for us. I can have a little more fun on Instagram, which is fun. And then the question about the vet community. Erica, do you mean in regards to the pandemic or just in general?
Yeah, just just with changes that you've made during the pandemic and that kind of thing, we just felt like we had to start emailing our vet community when we don't typically email them about, because we're not having massive changes at the shelter. So I'm curious as to how you were able to reach out to them if you did.
We actually didn't really reach out to them that much. Something that we saw in our area was that the vet community really didn't act like it was a pandemic at all. There were some vet clinics that did like curbside and stuff, but others were just like, nope, we're just going to continue as is, no changes in operations whatsoever. And our chief veterinarian owns a private practice, and she was just like sort of appalled with the way that it happened here in Kansas City. She, like a lot of clinics that we knew actually did do curbside, but it seemed that a lot of private practice vets were just like, nope, we're just gonna keep on going. Like, no, we're spay neuters. Yep, we're gonna keep on trucking. So yeah, we worked a lot with some of the clinics that did do a little bit more, shutdowns. But really, yeah, we're kind of on our own over here in terms of the vet community.
Any other?
Margaret's on here. We love Margaret.
Any other questions before we move on to Nikki? All right, take it away. Wait, first tell us about your background.
Oh, right. So I'm Nikki Reck. I work at Pima Animal Care Center in Tucson, Arizona. I've been here for 2 years. I previously worked in the news industry for, if you include college, 12, 13 years. So I worked as a newspaper reporter, radio, TV news. I did producing, reporting, anchoring, you name it. When you work in a small market, you kind of jump around and do a lot of different stuff. So my career is mostly based on news experience. So when this role opened up, I was really excited because I thought I could provide a perspective that folks may not have had, because I didn't see a whole lot of former newsies in the animal welfare industry. So that's what I have put a focus on. I help with the Maddie's apprenticeship trainings that we do. I mean, they're on hold now, obviously, because of COVID. But when they come to PAC and they get trained here at PAC, I'm actually part of their training process to talk about the importance of media and why you can't let that request to talk to you or be interviewed sit in your inbox. The longer you wait, the more likely it's not going to happen. Deadlines are short. They're quick. They happen very fast. And if a reporter's asking you for an interview, it's likely that their deadline is in a matter of hours, maybe minutes. That has happened to me before too. I had a reporter who called and said, hey, it's 3 o'clock. My story fell through. You guys just took in a big hoarding case. Can we hold a cat and talk about it for 4 o'clock or for our 4:30 newscast? And I was like, what? Yeah, we'll make it happen. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. So I called everybody up on the radio. I was like, where are these cats at now? Because like that that news release had been sent the day before. So I was really surprised that they wanted to do it. But it was Friday and everything else had kind of turn them down. So you want to be the easiest story that they handle and do. And that's what I kind of try to educate shelters on is Sarah Aguilar is in the comments. She said, you forgot Emmy winning. And I did. I won an Emmy for best newscast. And actually it's kind of funny. My husband was a reporter in my newscast. That doesn't really happen often, but we did some breaking news about some stuff that broke out in the streets of Phoenix when we sent them up there, our reporters up there to cover some of the craziness that happened when Donald Trump visited. So that was really weird watching my husband try not to get hit with smoke bombs or whatever they're called, I forget, and watch him dart around in the crowd. And so that kind of was a nice way to be like, I'm ready to move on. And animals were always my big passion. And I had volunteered here at PAC when I was still working at the television station in town. And when the job opened up, I said, you know what, I gotta try. I wasn't gonna leave the news industry for just anything because I was obviously very good at my job, but I thought this was a great way to incorporate both.
Awesome. First though, if they're interviewing you and they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, what do you do?
Okay, so
I love this one.
Yes, I love telling people this answer. So if you ask and you don't know the answer, please, 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 whatever you do, do not say, I don't know. And why is that? Because you represent your entire organization. So if you say, I don't know, then you're implying that your entire organization doesn't know. And that is definitely probably not accurate. You really just want to be able to say, you know what? I don't know off the top of my head personally, but I can find out for you. And you have to find out, like you have to get that answer to them, whether you like it or not. You want to be transparent. And so you get that message back to them later. And it's okay to not know answers. Journalists totally get it. Like, you know, when I would ask people questions, I asked some hard questions, ones that I knew they wouldn't be able to answer immediately. So I often expected people to tell me, I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but let me figure it out. But more often than not, I got, I don't know. And I would push them, and they weren't getting that implied that their entire organization didn't know. So I had to run with it. And many journalists will run with that, and they'll just make that the story. So you don't want that to happen. That's for sure.
All right. Do you guys have any questions? How are you guys dealing with external communications now? Is anybody running into any issues?
Interesting right now because so many reporters are like working from home or like they're not working their normal times and things like that. So it's been, I know Nikki still had a ton of stories, but for us, it's been a little more challenging because they'll have reporters, but they won't have photographers. And it's just, you know, we're doing more Zoom interviews and telephone interviews than ever before, which is still good.
That's interesting because we're doing way more in person than we ever did because
Really?
they're really tired of Zoom interviews. So they know that like, as long as we mask up and we do the social distance thing, that we're going to do it. Like our journalists are so sick of it. And most of them are MMJs anyway, which means they carry their own camera equipment. They're by themselves. I did it. It sucks. And that's exactly why you want to be the easiest person that they interact with, because those poor journalists that are graduating college right now, because most of them they're graduating college, they're not making much money, they're out in the heat. Here in Arizona it's 113 today, and they're carrying their own equipment, and so you just want to make it super easy so that they want to come back to you. Sarah in the comments mentioned press release timing and the content, and so that kind of ties into it. You want to give them everything that they need in case they don't and can't come to your shelter. Tori knows about this. Post it all on your social media. Make it so that they don't have to come to you if they don't want to. And the timing for press releases, Kristen, I drive her crazy sometimes because I have personal deadlines in my head because I've worked in a newsroom and I know what that's like. You want to hit them at one of their 2 editorial meetings. You want to hit them before their 9 9:30 morning meeting. So you want to get that press release sent to them before then, or you want to get them before their 2 o'clock editorial meeting. So depending on your local organization, most newsrooms, depending TV, newspaper, they have 3, 4, 5 editorial meetings a day, but those 2 are the most important. So timing for sure.
Hey, Veronica, did you want to say what you wrote in the chat?
Hi, yeah, sure. I was just sharing that we've been approached. So my communications specialist usually takes care of all of the interviews and whatnot, but because we're so foster centric now and because of everything that's happened with COVID, they've obviously been targeting me as the foster program coordinator. So I've been approached several times and I've already done 2 phone interviews, and they seemed like really intrigued, especially by our most recent drive-through foster appreciation events. But I haven't seen anything come to fruition, so that's a little bit of a bummer.
Do you have your Google alerts set for your shelter?
Google alerts. Can you expand? I'm sorry, Nikki.
No, no worries. I try to make sure I keep up with everything that we are mentioned in, and I think Tori, you do this too. You track them even more in depth, and I'll hand it over to you. Basically, you just sign up for, you go through Google, you have to have a Gmail account, and you sign up for alerts based on certain words. So I use PAC, Pima Animal Care Center, and then my own name.
Okay. I'm sure we have that or something similar. Again, we have a specific comms specialist, Chelsea Jones. So let me chat with her and see how she kind of fields all of that. But basically, a lot of the requests come to me through her, and then she passes it along and puts me in touch with that journalist.
Hey, this is Karen Hirsch from Lifeline Animal Project in Atlanta. I just wanted to add something to address Veronica's her issue. I think one thing you've got to keep in mind right now is that you might talk to a few reporters, but there are so many distractions right now, and news changes at the drop of a hat. And, you know, you never know what's going to come out of Trump's mouth, and, you know, the news will jump on it. And so just don't take it personally. Keep trying. If something comes up that seems to be a good story to tell, you can call that reporter back and say, hey, I know we talked the other day and I have something that I thought you might be interested in. And just go with it, and they'll be very appreciative whether they are able to use it or not. So we've been pretty lucky and successful in getting a lot of coverage here. But you know that the last story we almost did, they had to drop because something else came up, and that just happens. So keep your chin up.
To go on that point, part of my presentation always mentions if you have a work phone and you don't want it on your personal phone, I totally get it. Make sure you're signed up to your local, your big news organizations apps, because that way you can keep up with the local headlines. Earlier this week, I was really bummed because Mike Pence made a surprise visit to Tucson, so my news release didn't get any play, but I didn't know he was coming. It was a surprise visit, and I just got bumped.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I actually shared with Nikki in a private message that my degree was from Arizona State in journalism, but I never actually pursued the career. I got distracted with hospitality and whatnot, and then ended up in animal welfare, and it served me well. And I do understand like how it functions, and you're not always featured, but it is kind of a bummer. And I'm hoping there are others out there that empathize with me, where it's like, even if you think you got the carrot, sometimes you don't, but we can all keep trying, I suppose.
Sarah's question in the chat, something that I try to do regularly is, because there's so many reporters that kind of like flow through, you know, the area, if the stations are like, welcome new reporter to Kansas City, I always tweet at them and say, hey, welcome to Kansas City. We're the shelter. If you need any if you need any pet related stories, feel free to reach out, or like I'll send them a message on Instagram, or, you know, something like that, that just so that they have our information and our name, and then they'll add us to a list, or, you know, whatever, so that they have that information. So, but yeah, I have a few reporters at every station that it's like, if I have something that's coming up, I'll just like text them and be like, hey, I'm getting 40 cats in today, and then they can roll with it. And even if it's not the full details of everything, they at least have that basic information.
And
We
Twitter.
found, oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say, we found that in my previous nonprofit and here, the weather people always are looking for stories, because depends on your area, but weather is important, but then they have to fill in other time, and they can tag it or tie it into things. So you don't give up on the serious star, which is Dog Star. You know, they can tie it. They'll find a way to tie any story to the weather.
For example, your dog walking forecast.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Twitter for us is huge locally. I don't know. Well, I don't know. At every station I've ever worked at, Memphis, North Carolina, and then here in Arizona, we used an application called TweetDeck. It's free.
Mhm.
And that we would make separate lists, like PIOs here, politicians here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if that's just, I happen to have the same company at all the stations that I worked at, or if that's a thing across the board, but we have noticed here in Tucson, and Tori, I'm interested to see if this is the case for you, but most of our stories that get picked up actually don't come from news releases, they come from our tweets.
Yeah.
And they'll pick stuff up that I'm like, what? Why would you want, like we posted a request for squeaky balls because the dogs didn't have any. And they all picked it up. And I was like, what? But it was on Twitter, and that's where they all come from. And you'll see that it comes from Twitter because they'll post image source from Twitter.
Yes, the watermelon.
Now you got to tell the story. It's funny.
So Kristen, my boss, Kristen Hassan, had a great idea. It was great. It really was good. And we did a little request for some watermelon because it was hot. It's Arizona. It's 113 today. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times. It's hot. And so people love when you can give them something cheap to help the shelter. So we put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, boom. And then we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of watermelons and nowhere to put them and not enough dogs to eat them. And we were overflowing and people were still bringing the watermelons. So watermelon is not to make a joke of it, but sort of a PTSD kind of term. Like we're like, ooh, no, don't post watermelons.
The grocery stores were like sold out of watermelon.
Yes.
Go to the grocery store, like no one has watermelon. They're all at pack.
Exactly. It was excellent. And all the dogs that wanted watermelon got multiple rounds of it.
And many of them didn't. It turns out not all dogs like watermelon. That's also something that was discovered through that. But I'm wondering, like, for the folks that are on this call, like, how many news stories are you getting picked up a week, and like on average, and then how many press or like news releases are you putting out a week? Like, I'm really curious about those two things. If anyone's interested in sort of like sharing that either in the chat or popping in.
I was just going to chime in. We don't put press releases out every week because I like to have a real story first that they can cover, and not kind of bombard them with stuff. So, so that when I do send something out, they'll look at it and consider it. I just don't want to overdo it. So maybe one a week. Anybody else?
Yeah, what about other people? And I guess I'm curious, Nikki and Tori, like, what do you recommend for that? Like, what do you, and Sharon, of course, like, what are best practices for that?
feel like the last time I sent out a press release was when I announced our involvement in Haas. Like that's the last time. I mean, honestly, a lot of our media stories come from just social media and just building relationships with reporters and sending notes. But yeah.
Did you build those relationships through news releases, or was that just more organic that happened?
A lot of the time it's more organic. I have like several that just text me periodically and ask like, what do you have going on? Like, do you have anything today? I have one that will literally like send me almost every single day asking like what we have going on. And even if he can't cover it, he'll pass it along. So radio has been really popular too lately.
Yeah.
Like the talk radio stations.
Yeah.
They've been looking for a lot of stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rory,
oh, go ahead, Bobby.
Rory, I would absolutely echo that. I think relationship development is the most critical part. And I think something that you should also think about is that although many of these reporters are representing, a station, they're also trying to develop their own brands, and they're also sort of their own level of celebrity within their social platforms. So when you do engage them, if there is an opportunity to bring them to your shelter, say, hey, like, we know there's not a story, but if you want to promote puppies on your social, or, develop a relationship, or you want to bring some friends where you're socially distancing, that's where it really started for us at Front Street. And so at that point, we were really only putting out press releases when it was a part of a grant requirement, because we knew that most of our content was relationships were going to handle it. So I would put out a press release, but I would still text all my friends and say, hey, can you please pick this up? And so I think it's that, you always have to remember you want these relationships to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
And the best part, the thing that you could absolutely do the most is be accessible. That's the number one thing, whether it's weekends, afternoons, nights. If you're committed to them, they'll be committed to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes with cultivating your community, reaching out, and even if you don't know them, if everyone here already has like 2 or 3 ones that that already know you, but give them a tour, reach out and just say, what's up, what's new, what are you up to? And if you haven't reached out and said, we're part of Haas, if you're, one of the participating in this, let them know what it is and they'll feel like they're getting the inside scoop. But reach out and just tell them all, how are they doing? How's their family? We made a whole list of all the pets of all the news people, because they put it all on Twitter. So we got their names. And so whenever we'd send them a note, we'd just say, hi, how's Charlie? Just wanted to check in, let you know what we've got going on. And then maybe a couple weeks later, we'd send them a note about something that was going on. When Maddie's had the foster program, we'd send them a note and say, we wonder if hope Charlie's doing great, and can you retweet this for us? And they always did.
Yeah, and even through COVID, one thing that I didn't realize at first was how difficult it was for people that were potentially still looking to foster or were looking to adopt to find animals or pets they were looking for.
Yep.
So even engaging some of these reporters on social, saying, hey, I work for the local shelter. Do you have any friends or family that are looking to foster that are having a hard time or looking to adopt? Can I really kind of be a concierge service for you? It was a great way for us to start developing relationships too.
Yeah. Rory, did that answer your question? That was kind of like a round robin of answers.
Absolutely did. So like,
okay.
if news releases aren't the thing, then how much social media do you all do a day?
It all has to be intentional. It's not, you need to stay active, but I also think social media can be overdone, and they won't pay attention if it's not good content and serious content for them to like, oh, that's important. I want to follow up on that. So it's more about, so here I want to, Rory, that's a great question, but I would like to ask everybody on here, do you all have calendars? Like strategically put together content calendars for themes? Yep. Nikki's shaking her head voraciously. Yes, that's great. Because that helps you then know what content you're going to go, and then what you need a press release for. Like, how big is this? How important is it for everyone in your community to know this piece of information? And then your social media can support it.
It's also important to know your community, because like DC, you're not going to be sending as many press releases because yours are going to get buried. Here in Tucson, for some weird reason, we have a lot of people who are very in tune to news, and news releases still kind of are king. And so we try to send them at least once a month, but in the pandemic, at least once a month. And we're still getting covered 24 times based on social media. But in a non-COVID era, we're doing them once a week to stay fresh in their minds. So it's just paying attention to what your community responds to and what your newsrooms respond to.
I would recommend following the HeartSpeak calendar that they have, and it gives you all of the random holidays. I looked up the other day because I was like, International Cat Day, isn't like Cat Day in like October? And I was like, oh, it's International Cat Day. Okay, it's kind of like gets a little much at times, but it gives you like some fun ideas. I think I saw like tomorrow's relaxation day, so you could like do something cute with like a dog like sleeping on the couch or something like that, just as part of that. National like Margarita Day, you know, think of like fun things to be able to post, and that kind of gives you a variety of things that you can do. So
you know, the cats have a lot on the calendar.
They do have a lot on
They've snuck a lot in, like Rub My Belly Day and, you know, all of that, or Don't Touch Me Today Day.
True. Sarah asked forever ago about our graphics team. So I am very, very blessed that I have someone on my team. Her name's Katie, that if you're on the social media page, she often shares things that she learns and does here. But yeah, she's our graphic design coordinator here. And then she also does video work, and she's pretty amazing. So, but we're very focused on, you know, building a brand identity and using the same fonts, using the same colors so that everything looks cohesive. And if we have like an event that has its own branding, that we use all the style guides around that. We even did some things during the pandemic, like, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a magnet that has all of our foster contacts on there. So it has, you know, for adoption questions, go here. For veterinary clinic, email this link. And we give these out to all the fosters. So this was like a really big thing that that we're starting to do now, to try to give out to everybody whenever they sign up to foster, so they know who to contact.
That kind of just led me to think, you know, just because your shelter may not be large and maybe you don't have a graphic designer, but you could, it just reminded me when Kristen Hassan was the communications director in Fairfax, there was not any, you know, money for graphic design, but she did a call online and said on Facebook and said, hey, you know, we need some graphic designers. Could anybody, you know, can you send me a portfolio? And she got in the portfolios of like 4 different people, and one of them was amazing. And she did it for free. So that's also an option.
Canva's great for a free resource for graphics.
Canva's amazing.
What other questions do people have, or that y'all are struggling with external comms that these 2 folks can help with?
There was one question that a couple of shelters had, and it was about community cat messaging. They're both shelters in the north, and the community has been kind of resistant to the idea of leaving the cats outside because they say it's really cold, and it's different there than it is in other places. So I'm curious to see what you guys think and what Monica thinks about that.
We're having that issue right now with the opposite problem, that it's too hot. And so we basically, and Arizona is different because cats are considered wildlife here. So we have to treat it a different way, but it's just a matter of letting folks know, yes, our trap, neuter, return program is still happening. We may not be actively using our staffers here at the shelter to do it, but you can help us, and here's how. So it's kind of putting it on the community to be a part of the solution, because we had to make a lot of changes due to COVID. So if you want to help us, help us.
Monica, you had mentioned something the other day. What was about the question about community cats in areas where it's really cold or really hot? What would you respond to people?
You know, they're outside and thriving right now in pretty much every single climate on every single continent except Antarctica. So one of the things I teach my students is that it's literally a giant map of the world, and it shows where cats thriving right now. And it's literally every single continent other than Antarctica. And so we hear this a lot. Is it too hot to TNR cats? Is it too cold to TNR cats? What about relocating them? They're out there now, and they're doing well now. So there's no reason to think that they can't continue to do well. Especially when we're just talking about TNR and SNR, which makes the cat's lives infinitely easier, right? When we spay or neuter, it drastically reduces their calorie need. Life gets easier for them all around. So they're already out there, they're already thriving in whatever climate you're dealing with, whatever neighborhood, whether it's city or urban or rural or Siberia or Mexico, they're already out there, they're doing fine. There's no reason for us not to intervene in a way that only improves their life, no matter what time of year it is or what your latitude or longitude may be in the world.
Thank you. That was really well said. A couple people had questions about bad press or haters on social media. How do you guys handle that? What is the best way to handle that?
Like wine? No, I'm just kidding. Social media, I think I'll let Nikki take on the reporters if you want to take that one. On social media, we have built up this like amazing group of volunteers, and they just do it on their own. That like if somebody posts something bad about us on social media or they post a comment, like literally the volunteers just like jump on it and they just handle it all. I don't even usually have to say anything. I can like shut it down if it gets too bad, but most of the time they'll like, you know, try to correct the situation. But you know, I think there should be just a whole rule book about free adoption events, like of just, or cats around Halloween, black cats around Halloween. There's just always the things that we know that there will always be people that hate on those things, and we're just ready to answer them. Like Sharon said, transparency is the best on social media as well, and just responding, but always, you know, just being honest with everybody.
There are also tons of studies out there. Speaking of Sharon at Maddie's Fund, Maddie's Fund has lots of information out there about studies that debunk all of these things that we get called out on. So I know we cite Maddie's Fund and their studies continuously, and we talk about black cats at Halloween. And, you know, there's actually really fascinating information out there that many research foundations have proved that these alleged satanic cults don't even exist to begin with, much less are they outsourcing cats. So there's a ton of data out there. Maddie's puts out a ton of data debunking these adoption kind of gatekeeping myths that abound in the industry. So I like to post research and data studies, because if you want to argue with research and data, then have at, but I'm not going to argue with you about Facebook, on Facebook.
Yeah, free adoptions are great.
Yep, tons of info there about free adoptions or low-cost adoptions or adoption events, black cats at Halloween. I mean, just there's so much. It's even Snopes has debunked many of these issues. It's really funny to me. Even Snopes has debunked the things that we still cling to in industry, which I find endlessly entertaining.
Yeah. Well, it's an industry made up of people, and the people are only as good as the information that they seek out, or someone tells them who they were told by someone else who's someone else. So it's just sharing like the old wives' tale. I don't even think that's a proper term to use now, but that's what it used to be called, was just, you know, rumor. It's like the game of telephone. And it gets changed and twisted, and everyone says, oh, I know, I heard that. And like, where did you hear it from? Yeah. And they don't really remember.
And we do the same thing with the bird advocates. If we're talking TNR, you're going to get bird advocates. And we do the same thing. We post the research studies, and there's a ton of them. And if you haven't seen, Dr. oh Lord, the name escapes me right now. Shame on me. Dr. Hurley. If you haven't seen her cat versus bird webinar that she put out last year, it is stunning. I'll find it and post the link in the chat. It's the definitive analysis of every bird versus cat study that's been done in the last 50 years and what her analysis of it is. And I won't give away the ending for y'all, but it's absolutely fascinating. But again, we post the research studies and we come at it at an angle of we're on the same team as the bird advocates. And we both want the same thing. We want less homeless cats. This is the way we know to go about it, through backed research and data-driven policies on TNR and SNR. And we are helping the situation. These are cats that already exist. We're spaying and neutering them. That only helps the birds. We are feeding them so the cats don't have to eat the birds. This is all win-win. Thank you so much, bird advocate. We agree. We also want less homeless cats. This is how we know to go about it because science is on our side. Thanks. Have an awesome day.
So about investigative and difficult reporters, we had quite a few here in Tucson when I started. My first day on the job, we had someone, my first week, sorry, not my first day, my first 3 days on the job, we had an investigative reporter who wanted to do a story, and they did what's called an ambush interview. And that basically is what it sounds like. They throw up a camera live and try to, when did you stop beating your wife? You know, like really loaded questions. And so this person was talking about dog bites in the shelter. And much like you guys, I'm sure that's stayed pretty, you know, even for like years and years and years. It doesn't really go up. It doesn't really go down. It's the same amount. We're not adopting out dangerous dogs. We had to do that story. And I knew that he was rolling because I looked at the camera and I saw that it was red and it was blinking. And so I had to like calm everyone else around me. I lied and said he wasn't recording, but I basically said, hey, that's not the topic that we agreed to do the interview on. We've already sent the information about this. Have a good day. And in hindsight, I wish that we had not made that call because I knew as a journalist that that was not going to work. So you cannot hide or run away from negative media. You got to take it on. You got to take it on. You got to own it. Exactly. And if you own it, the more transparent you are, the better the story is going to be. And here's the thing, if I can give you only one piece of advice, and we had some really terrible journalists, and I'm saying that as a journalist at heart, there's nothing worse than a journalist hates being called a bad journalist. They're not fair. They're biased. And there's a way to call them out on it without saying it. And they hate that more than anything. Yeah. So you have to get in front of it, and you cannot argue. You cannot get mad. You cannot visibly act like you're going to punch the person. You know, it's just part of it. And just get those facts, get those studies, get those numbers. Do a lot of research within your own organization. Kristen is great about forcing people to do research within PAC so that I have the ammo that I need for some of those reporters to say, actually, that's not the case, and here's why. One example, we had this one reporter who was bitten by a dog and did many, many, many negative stories about the animal shelter and how we were adopting out dangerous dogs, even though the facts and the numbers weren't there. But that was his shtick, and man, he stuck with it until he left and finally went to a different industry, thank goodness. But we had a breeder here in Arizona, and I don't know if you know Arizona state laws, there's not a whole lot you can do about breeders unless they follow the same rules that adopters do. Shade, shelter, food, water, proper vet care. And so he was hung up on this guy having so many of these red huskies. There were rumors that they were inbred, blah, 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 all the things that we cannot control and we have no ability over. And he got hung up on it, and he got upset with me giving him the same answers because I said, look, I've already told you the state law is this. We can only enforce the laws that are there, not the laws as we would like them to be written. And this is, please take this advice because you're going to encounter a bad journalist at some point. And I say that again with a heart for journalists forever. I'm married to one. And I was one, but he was taking my mic off, which I hate because I don't like when people do that. I know how to do it. It's under my clothes. Let me handle it. So anyway, he was taking my mic off and talking to me, and he was like, so what do you really think? And I was like, oh, you are trying to do gotcha journalism. And I looked at the ground and the camera's still rolling. And so, like, I'm a journalist, so I know what he's doing. I never played that trick. I think it's sneaky. I don't like it. It's bad journalism. But he was trying to catch me in a moment of, yeah, man, you know, I wish we could really go in there guns blazing and take this guy down because he just keeps breeding inbred husky after inbred husky. But I couldn't say that. And you shouldn't say that. You represent your organization. The mic is always hot. The mic is always hot. The mic is always hot. I'm going to repeat it until, you know, just make sure you know it doesn't matter. Everything's on the record, even when it's off the record.
Yeah.
Nikki, I would love to know if you have thoughts on this because you're the journalist professional. When I was directing the CAT program at Awesome Pets Live, we'd have the journalists come in all the time, and what worked for me was to develop what I'd call like my elevator pitch, and I would have 3 subjects that I was going to talk about. And usually for me, it was like adopt, foster, donate. And I don't care what the journalist asked me, we're going to talk about adopt, foster, donate. And so what color is the sky, Monica? And I would say, it is a great color to come on down today and adopt from Awesome Pets Alive. Here is our adoption special. And I would just refuse, like I just had it in my head. We're going to talk about those 3 things. I really don't care what you're going to ask me. We're going to talk about those 3 things. And that really helped me because they do throw out those pitches and, oh, can you tell me about that hoarding case? No, but I can tell you about the amazing cats we have waiting for you right now at Awesome Pets Alive. So that really helped me, but I don't know if that's something, you know, what your thoughts on that were, because that's been my kind of go-to for years.
Well, they're not going to like that, so they're going to get annoyed with it eventually, because I got annoyed with it as a reporter, because it's like, come on, man, give me a bone here. But it might work for some reporters, it might not. It depends on who you're talking to. For me, like what works here in Tucson is just getting in front of it. Knock on wood, all of the problematic reporters that gave us really bad problems have moved on to other agencies or industries. And so the ones we have here are pretty easy. Like we had one yesterday, and Monica, you know how it is down here. We had someone email and call at the same time, which drives me crazy because it's like, yes, I saw your email, I'm checking on it. Immediate, like it's the same time. And so she called and she's like, well, we were at a scene and a death investigation, and they saw animal control, because we're not control. We saw animal control taking a dog out of the house. Was the dog the cause of that person's death? And I was like, let me check on that for you. But usually something at that level, I've already been aware of it. We take dogs out of homes where people have passed away every day, several times a day. So it's likely just that situation. And I didn't do what you said and just, here's something I can talk about, because I knew that it was just going to make it worse. And like, she was just going to keep going and going and going and going. So I called up the officer at the scene and I was like, did this dog cause that person's death? No, the person died and we didn't have anyone to take care of it. So it was a 5-minute phone call and we were done. And that was that story. And it's weird that they went from one extreme to the other, but they'll do that because a lot of them are straight out of college and they have no experience. And they've watched a lot of television and media that is not at all accurate to what journalism is really like.
Yeah. But Monica, I think having 3 things that if they ask you something off the topic that you can go to and say, gosh, thank you so much. That's a great question. I'd be happy to follow up on that. But I'd also like to let you know, and then even tell another story about a cat or a pet or a dog that leads to donating, fostering, volunteering, coming,
It's just really easy to get caught off your guard when someone puts you on the spot like that in front of a camera. And so just having that mantra has really helped me over the years of
it's
not
great.
Getting sucked into that. Yeah.
And when
practice is important.
Yes. And when they say, do you have anything else to add? Pull out those 3 things. I always do that. Just like, your list, Monica, I've got foster, adopt, donate. As soon as they say, what other ways, what do you want to tell us? And I go to those in my back pocket. And sometimes they follow up into second stories. So it works.
Yeah.
It does work.
And now everybody has this Haas story. Like, well, we're doing all this with Haas. Are you familiar with community-centric sheltering or sheltering reimagined? And then that sort of going to, oh, I'm out of time, but I want to know more. So that's always a good one to end with.
This has been awesome. Thanks for being here. We wanted to, before we go, we wanted to ask you, we're sort of trying to come up with a new name for this, for our Friday calls. So we were hoping for some inspiration. If you could type in the chat like 3 words that describe like why you all come and keep coming back to this, that would be super helpful. Sharon, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's perfect. It's like, yeah, 3 words that describe what you receive from this or why you come and what you feel and when it's over. That would help us.
And Kelly has she's put together like an awesome basement office lonely. Sarah, I'll have to give you a call later. I'm worried about you now.
Yeah.
But Jordana said, Sarah, do you need help? It's a good question. But Kelly has a great lineup of people coming to these things the next couple of weeks. Kelly, did you want to share about that while people are putting in the chat things like basement office lonely?
Sure. So next week we've got Bobby talking about customer service. We are going to be talking on the 28th about getting buy-in from staff, and Dr. Josh Fisher and Ed Jamison from Dallas are going to be here. And on the 4th of September, we are going to be talking about evictions and intake. Kristen Hassan-Auerbach is going to be our guest that day. On the 11th, Gina Knapp will be talking about getting lost pets home. And we have on the 18th, intake to placement, Danielle Harris from PAC will be talking. And then I think we have fundraising on the 25th, and that is also Bobby. But also, if you have things that you are interested in learning about, please feel free to email or put it in the chat. Happy to take any ideas.
Yeah, and as always, thank you all so much for coming. This is one of the highlights of my week, seeing all of your familiar faces and getting to hear everything that y'all are doing. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you all next time. And special thanks
guys.
to Tori.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you so
Nikki and
much,
Tori,
guys.
great job.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, Jordana, wine down, not wine. Got it.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm trying to catch everyone's words.
I'll save the chat.
Oh, cool.
And we can look through it next time we talk. But
Thank you.
yeah, it looks like
lots of interesting words.
I know, I like it.
Yeah, it's good. All right, I'm
Okay.
off to the next one. Thank
Me
you, guys.
too. I will see you there.
Good to see you, Monica. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, good to see you too. And really
where
thanks
are
to
you?
Maddie where am I?
Yeah.
Oh, in my background. The background is Prague. Yeah, the background is Prague. I'm like, you know where I'm in Austin.
I know.
The background is, yes, the background is Prague this week.
Lovely.
But I want to say quickly before we end, thanks to Maddie's for not only hosting these, but for all those research studies that we talked about that help us drive our industry to be better every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you for doing the work that you guys are doing hands on. So
have a good weekend, everybody.
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.